Hi, welcome to another episode of Mr. Bench's Book Reviews. What's in the box today? Let's see. It is something called The Secret Lake by Karen Inglis. As you can see, it's pretty long, so I'll be reading the whole thing. But we'll get started, see how we get on. And let's see, it seems to be in chapters. I can probably read 3 or 4 chapters. So we on. So it's by Karen Inglis, cover illustration by Damir Kundalic. Possibly Kundalitz. Here we go. I'll read those. Okay, there's an epigraph thing. Epigram. Come and play in the garden of imagination. Let the seeds of your dreams grow and blossom in distant lands and times forgotten. London, 2011. 1. The Gardener. Tom's face, I guess Tom's the gardener then. Tom's face felt so hot he was sure it was about to explode. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on his back, which I guess this heat transferred to his face, and the beads of sweat that had long since formed on his forehead began to itch and tickle. But still he dug on. Would be another clue that he's a gardener. If he's digging. Surely if he kept going there would be a sign, a tuft of silky fur perhaps, a distant squeak. Something for a mouse, or, and this really would be the best, a pair of tiny eyes squinting blindly up towards the daylight. He paused to wipe the trickling sweat. Oh no, it was tickling sweat earlier, now it's trickling, but that's okay. The trickling sweat with the back of his wrist, then lifted his spade for what felt like the 100th time, just as a dark shadow loomed up from behind. A familiar... well, that'll be good, I'll keep the sun off. A familiar chill... so he is familiar with cool sensations as well. And a familiar chill travelled down his spine as, with heart pounding, he swiveled round to meet the piercing stare of the gardener, Charlie Green. So Tom isn't the gardener, so that's cool. It's like a twist, even in the first couple of paragraphs. Set you up thinking Tom's the gardener. Charlie Green, good name for a gardener, works with grass. Green, Mr. Green, the gardener. Okay. I guess it could be, there's a famous gardener called Charlie Dimmock, who's a woman, so we don't know. Now look here, Tom Hawkin, I've told you before, I have enough trouble chasing up these darn molehills without having you going around digging them up. This is written in kind of, they apostrophize, they write Avin with an apostrophe, A-V-I-N apostrophe. Which always makes it a bit tricky to read because I don't really like putting on silly accents. Chasing up the molehills is a bit confusing. She's presumably not running up the molehills. Like chase up a different kind of hill. I'm not quite sure what she means by all that. But she doesn't like him mucking around with the molehills, I guess. Tom felt his cheeks burning. That'll be the hot face again. Which was odd. Oh. Because his body was suddenly freezing. Because of the chill and the shadow. Okay. So his cheeks are burning. Okay. Not quite get it. Charlie Green had had it in for him since the day they had moved to the gardens. Of that he was sure. He was always giving him funny looks. He was always giving him funny... Okay, so Charlie presumably is a man, a bloke. But it's not quite clear who's giving whom the funny looks. I guess probably the gardener gives Tom the funny looks, if he's got it in for him. Tom tried to speak, but his throat, which suddenly felt drier than the Sahara at noon. The Sahara's a desert, so it's dry. I'm not sure. Noon. Stuck tight. He never had been brilliant at getting out of trouble, just expert at getting into it. Charlie Green squinted darkly. Well, he wanted squinting eyes, but these aren't the kinds of squinting eyes he wanted, are they? He wanted a mole. Next time, I'll have to tell your mum. And they've written "yer," Y-E-R. So there's clearly some sort of dialect intended here. He growled, says Charlie. Now take that rag of yours and be off. Not sure what they mean by the rag. But we'll find out, I suppose. Tom fumbled as he gathered up the corners of his treasure rag. And they've capitalised that a bit like in Winnie Pooh books. So it must be an important thing. To his relief... It is a bit confusing on the two males. To his relief, Charlie Green hadn't noticed... That must be Tom's relief. To his relief, Charlie Green hadn't noticed the array of plant bulbs he had dug up. So it's to Tom's relief, Green hadn't noticed the bulbs Tom had dug up, which now lay scattered in amongst Tom's earth treasure. Now that's in inverted commas, but not capitalised. So that means it's less established than the treasure rag. That's more of a name he's trying out. 3 handsome stones, a piece of broken green bottle, and a tatty old purse that had probably belonged to a child's doll. The stones he would keep and place in his box marked Tom's earth treasure. Well, now that is capitalised again, and in inverted commas. So we've got treasure rag just capitalised, earth treasure lowercase inverted commas, and Tom's earth treasure capitalised inverted commas. So I'm not quite sure of the hierarchy here, but that may become clear as we move on. Which sat in the grate of his enormous bedroom fireplace. Well, he's got a big fireplace. Nice. Everything else he would throw back. If he's looking for moles, it sounds there like if he's got a treasure rag, it sounds like he's digging for treasures. I'm not quite sure why he really wants some moles to mole store treasure. Could be like the looking for a stereotypical magpie's nest. I'm not sure. Anyway, by the time he nudged open the small gate separating his parents' small patio garden from the main communal gardens, Charlie Green had already refilled the mole hole. That's a mole hole, not a molehill, and was now stomping angrily across the lawns towards his shed. Clusters of tiny earth mounds lay scattered all around. It had been a bad week for moles in West London. That's nice. That's a nice way of signalling to the reader where we are. We're in West London. I don't know. That means Charlie Green's trying to have a London accent. It's hard to say, isn't it? Tom's heart. I don't think we've had Tom speaking yet, so we don't know what his accent's supposed to be like. Though he knows about the Sahara, but he'd probably just learn about that in the school lessons. Anyway, here's his heart. We've learnt a lot of Tom's body. We've had his wrists and his forehead and his neck and it's probably his spine or his back, was it, with the chill? Spine, yeah. Classic. Anyway, Tom's heart now still took off every time he entered his first floor bedroom. After his tiny room in their 10th floor Hong Kong apartment, it really was a dream come true. Well, we were told it was enormous, or at least the fireplace was. His ceiling reached high like a private indoor sky. The narrow French doors, opening onto the tiny sun-filled balcony, stood tall as skyscrapers, and on the far wall a magnificent marble fireplace stood even taller than he was. Stood even taller than he was, than he stood. I guess they mean... approve of two different verbs. The thing with the comparative there. But more important than all of these things was the view. Tom's new room looked out onto a vast, rambling garden. I mean, they said here they had a small patio garden, but I guess you can see over that into this large main communal gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see. The garden, which was shared by all of the houses, there goes the communal one, in the square. It's just the place there, was filled with clusters of rhododendron bushes rhododendron bushes, and sprawling oak trees whose branches seemed to brush the passing clouds. Tall, then. All the clouds are low. Tom pressed his nose hard against the French door window, and I believe French door just means those big full-length ones that like open, and they're like panelled windows, but I'm not quite sure. And breathed in deeply, still wondering about Charlie Green. What's to wonder? Thought he was fairly transparent in his dislike of people digging up his gardens. Then, through his clouds of warm breath on the glass, he saw a small dog shoot out from a cluster of trees and race across the lawn towards the houses. Slowly, Tom's mouth widened into a grin. "I don't believe it, Stell." Not sure what Stell is, probably a name. He yelled at the top of his voice, there's even in capital letters, "Harry's back!" There aren't any signs of dialect like apostrophes in unusual places in that one. So here's Harry's the dog. Stella, that'll be Stellan, who was lying on her bed in her room next door, studying her friendship bracelet, didn't answer, with her iPhone music on full volume. iPhone. It's quite modern, this book. 2011, not sure when the iPhone came out. She was busy hoping that her friends back in Hong Kong, who would all be asleep now, had thought about her today. She also happened to be crunching her 5th fruit polo of the day. This is very British, referencing fruit polos. Polos are like mints with holes in, and fruit polos are fruit versions. Lime green flavour, to be precise. Flavour's also written with a British U, so it's British. The one that always made her ears tingle. Tom thinks he's in heaven. She had just messaged her best friend Hannah on Facebook. Well, she's clearly very into all this modern stuff with Facebook and iPhones. I guess friendship bracelets are fairly old-fashioned. But that clearly contrasts her to Tom, who likes digging and treasure, rags? And she likes Facebook and iPhones and music. So I'll just go back. Okay, so the polo made her ears tingle, and then she said, Tom thinks he's in heaven. She had just messaged her best friend Hannah on Facebook. But it's so deathly dull here. All molehills and boys. Stella didn't budge, nor for that matter did Tom, who was now leaning out so far over his balcony he was in danger of falling off. He was determined to see if old Mrs. Moon, I haven't heard about her before, would be at her gate to welcome her disappearing dog. There's a lot of alliteration there. You've had deathly dull and disappearing dog. So I just need to go back to this polo. Lime green flavour is quite an interesting way of describing a flavour, because green is obviously a colour. But you do get people who say I like the red ones or the green ones. So it's very much though it's perceived by the eater rather than the actual flavour. Lime green, not flavour. Anyway, but Mrs. Moon wasn't at the gate. After all, she would have to be psychic. So exactly when Harry would choose to come home. Never mind psychic, all the garden residents thought Mrs. Moon was batty. Slang for crazy. Her lost dog notices were pinned up everywhere, and she drove them all mad. Must be the residents. Drove them all mad, phoning them up each time Harry went off, which was often for days at a time. Well, at least if he goes off for days at a time, you don't have to ring people up every day. Tom had found himself wondering about Harry when he was out digging. Does a lot of wondering, doesn't he, Tom? The little long-haired terrier's comings and goings seemed to be part of garden life, as did the snarling Charlie Green and the molehills. That's nice, because normally a dog would snarl, and if the gardener's snarling, I guess that's cute. And, of course, the Dottie, whose word for batty, basically, maybe a bit milder. Dotty old Mrs. Moon. But why did the dog keep disappearing? And exactly where did he go? As thoughts of Charlie Green quickly evaporated, where is a sunny day? I think things would evaporate. Tom resolved to solve Harry's mystery by summer's end. I said I was going to read 4 or 5 chapters, but that was actually slower going than I thought it would be. So I think we're good. Well, I think that was interesting. I mean, some bits, I really don't like it when they write in dialect like that. Not sure how to read it. I mean, you don't want to just make up some stupid dialect on a funny voice. But I mean, we've got Mrs. Moon and Charlie Green, so we've got some nice names. We don't know. Oh, Tom's called Tom Hawkins, so I guess they're trying to make out that he's a bit posher. It's got a posher name. And Green and Moon are fairly, one syllable names, make them sound like they're members of the working class. And then this Stella, I guess, is Tom's sister. She likes music and friends. And yeah, there's this confusion with Tom's treasure. And the whole thing about the heat and the cold. Well, you get the contrasts, I guess. We'll have to see how we get on, won't we? The next thing is called Beneath the Mound. So I guess someone's going to look under one of these molehills. But we shall find out. If you would like me to continue with this, then do put it in the comments. But otherwise, I would not normally cover the same book twice, unless it was hugely called for. So, thank you, and see you next time. Bye.